Welcome back to Just Got Radio on BJPenn.com. I'm your host, Cole Shelton, episode 142. We got a good lineup out of UFC Vegas 81. First up, we're going to be joined by one half of the main event, Sodiq Yusuff, to preview his main event fight against Edson Barboza. Really good chat with Sodiq. Obviously hasn't fought in about a year, but kind of talk about what kind of happened and then getting the chance to fight Edson. Obviously, these two were supposed to fight in October of 2020, which is kind of interesting. It was October 10th they were supposed to fight. Nearly 3 years later to the day, they finally get a fight, and Sodiq knows this is a big opportunity for him. We're then going to be joined by Adrian Yanez to preview his fight against Jonathan Martinez. This should be a banger. Adrian looking to get back in the win column, coming off that first round knockout loss to Rob Font. First loss in the UFC, snapped that five-fight unbeaten streak in the UFC, while Adrian Yanez, or Jonathan Martinez, on the other hand, is on a nice little win streak, coming off a good win over Said Nurmagomedov. So Adrian knows he has his handful of Jonathan, but he thinks he has the power to knock him out. And then we close things out talking to Ashley Yoder to preview her fight against Emily Ducote. Ashley, bit of a surprise maybe for some people that she's back in the outcome. She knew she'd always get another fight. She's 8-8 as a pro, 3-7 in the UFC, back-to-back losses. Hasn't fought since July of 2021, but she has a lot of comments going in this fight against Emily Ducote, and she's really looking forward to remind everyone just how good she is. But be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of Just Scrap Radio.
All right, we're jumping UFC featherweight Sodiq Yusuff, who's got a big main event upcoming in a couple weeks. Sodiq, how's it going, man?
I can't complain, man. I just woke up. Well, USADA just woke me up, so I was like, "Hey, let me knock the interview out of the way too."
With USADA coming, like, do they like give you a heads up and say like, "Hey, we're gonna be here like at a time," or they just kind of knock on the door at any time?
Yeah, they just knock on the door. Depending on who it is how pleasant the knock is. Sometimes they knock like police officers. Sometimes they knock like like the regular pleasant people.
Is that quite odd? Like, you could just get woken up like that, like, and just kind of.
Well, this at least it's not bad if they come at like a decent time. You know, back in the day when I was roommates with James Vick, there was one time when they came like 5 in the morning, and that was that was pretty bad.
And then obviously your fight, like main event, Edson Barboza, you get the call for that. Like, how excited are you for just obviously main event's big, but then the name across on the contract as well?
Yeah. I was scheduled to fight Edson before back in the past for the pandemic, but I didn't have a passport, so I couldn't go to Fight Island. And I was very, very excited to get it then. And when it fell through, it was kind of disappointing. You know, it was like that would have been a big name to have like on my legacy. You know, everybody knows what Edson brings to the octagon. But now that she said main event, and they called, to be honest, when they first called us, they just said it was me versus Edson. And I started looking at the card, and I was like, like these names here. I'm sorry. I think me and Edson might be the biggest draw on this card. And and then a couple of weeks later they let us know it was the main event. So it was just a little extra bonus on top.
Your last fight was obviously a year ago, and it was very quick. Like, why did it kind of take so long for you to get another fight then?
Yeah, literally. Well, going into that fight too, I was a little banged up, but like right after the fight, I had a really bad back injury. Like literally, maybe like the next week or two, I had a really bad back injury. I herniated a couple of discs in my back, a really bad L4, L5 one. I was barely able to stand up for like a long time. It took a lot of like rehab type of workouts, a couple cortisone shots. So it took a long time for the back to be able to walk on, and then let alone train. You know, a couple times I'll feel it was good, and I'll get back to training, and then I'll just hear a pop, and it'll be right back to square one again. So that's what took so long. I wanted to actually wait until I was confident enough to take a fight to where I know I could get through a full camp, and I also wanted to make sure I could walk.
Was there any point where you thought like your career might be over then?
No, because I all the doctors told me it would have required surgery as long as I don't mess it up any further than it was. It was just gonna be a long like sit around time, you know. Like most of them was all telling me 6 months, you know. And I tried to do everything that I could to speed it up, but at the end of the day, it turns out sometimes these doctors know what they're talking about.
And then you obviously had a bit of a camp for Edson, or like you were supposed to schedule him. Like, do you go back and look at like kind of what you were doing for that one, or do you is it kind of a completely new camp for this one?
No. It's kind of the same thing I was planning on doing before in the old camp, and then you just rewatch more films to see what's changed so far. And to be honest, there's not a lot that's changed in his game. You know, there's only one that's in Barboza. It's kind of the same thing like me. You know, we're both coming to fight one way.
How exciting, like, is it? Like, does it just make like training a bit more exciting when you get a guy like Edson? You know, he just kind of wants there and stand and trade with you.
Not necessarily, man. I'm not gonna lie. I think I broke my excitement and pressure meter a long time ago. So like all of it is kind of like at the same base level. It's a very high level, but it's kind of the same all around. It could be Edson or it could be your grandmother. It's gonna be the same. It's gonna be the same amount of intensity, just because I know how much a win brings in the UFC.
Are you a bit disappointed it's at the Apex, or like I guess it's kind of
No,
like
no, wait, man. I'm telling you, I'm not one of those guys. I know the fans don't like it and stuff like that, but the Apex to me, until I'm getting like pay for the gate or something like that, or like pay-per-view points, I could care less, man. Like I said, we could host this fight in your grandma's basement. As long as they're gonna pay me the same, I could care less. And to be honest, I kind of like the Apex because it always feels like practice. It feels like I'm at sparring, you know. And to be honest, it's not any, it doesn't make a difference for the viewers at home. The only people that would care, I'll say, the only thing that's different is the celebration when you get the win, or the energy for the walkout. That's the only different, but the actual fight is the same. To be honest, the fight might be even more comfortable, you know, just because of how personal the arena is. And everything is like during fight week. I know you guys don't go through all this stuff, but everything is very seamless for fight week. You know, like, hey, you go here, go here, go here, go here. Everything's kind of hosted in the same general area. So yeah, I couldn't care less about the Apex. I'll fight in your grandma's living room.
With Edson too, like I think going into that last fight against Billy Q, a lot of people were already kind of writing Edson off and like saying he's done as a contender. He kind of showed he can still knock anyone out. Like, what have you kind of made of his run? Because like you look at his run, like he might have one of the hardest resumes in like the history of the sport.
Man, tell me about it. It's legends. Like, man, when I made my second fight in the UFC, me and him fought on the same card. I was telling him like, man, I'm such a big fan. You know, like he's really fought the who's, you know, and he's held his ground. You know, sometimes he didn't always come out on top, but he always had a valiant effort. You know, so. Like you said, I don't write him out at all. He's always a dangerous guy. He's always dangerous guys through the whole fight, no matter how the fight is looking.
And I think it is always crazy. Like, still to me, it's crazy that he's at 45. Because when he was at 55, I thought like if he's going to change weight classes, it would go up to 70.
It'll go up. I wonder that too, man. Is like him, Aldo, a couple of these guys are like they get older and get lower somehow, but who knows? I mean, to be fair though, lately I've been finding myself walking around a lot lower than I normally do too. So it might be one of those things that it gets better the more knowledge is out there for the sport. Back in the day, you know, a lot of us are still kind of going on bro science, but now there's a lot of good nutritionists hanging around that could help us guide us along the way.
You've had these like year-long layoffs in the past. Like, do you not really worry about like ring rust or anything? Because like you had, I guess, with the Arnold fight to the Alex fight, and you looked pretty good in that one.
Yeah. It sucks, man. It's one of those things where like I never planned it. My plan is always to be busy, but destiny's destiny. So, but with ring rust, it's not. It's not even like I'll say I don't believe in ring rust. I feel like ring rust exists in every fight. I've never been in 2 fights in a row where I felt where I haven't felt. Listen, I'm about to fist fight somebody in my underwear in front of 1 million people. It never feels normal, you know. So it's not. So I guess I'm familiar with the ring rust. It never feels the same. So yeah, ring rust is not real because every fight is different.
With Edson, like, do you bring anyone in to mimic him, or is it just kind of the same guys you've always been training with?
Yeah, man. To be honest, a couple. I brought in Keeman Diop. Is one of the strikers I grew up with. But to be honest, a lot of us around here, we've all been training with each other for so long. It's kind of like just getting the band back together. Like, hey, okay, let's get somebody that we remember from back in the day that used to strike like Edson. You know, so it's one of those things where the DMV is a good spot for a lot of good talent. You know, a lot of unrecognized talent.
With 5 rounds, does that change the way you train or how you fight, or is it just kind of?
No. I don't think either me or Edson is planning on going 5 rounds.
Just kind of build on that, and like, how do you kind of see it playing out then?
Yeah, man, we're 2 dangerous strikers, man. I honestly think it's gonna be a finish. Maybe second round finish. Unless if Edson plans on putting on his wrestling shoes, which I highly doubt, So yeah, it's gonna be a striking fest. There's a reason why they put us at the main event, Is both of us have shown a pretty consistent pattern of how we fight.
You go out there, knock out Edson, like obviously that would be the base one of your career, like, but like where do you think that puts you in the featherweight division? Because like division's kind of like wide open because Volk kind of needs guys.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Man, after that, I'm definitely gonna ask for a top 5 guy. It's one of those things. I don't like talking about stuff like that because I like going at facing the actual fight in front of me. But definitely, it's about time for me to start making a move. I'm 6-1 right now in the UFC, so I think it's one of those things. To be fair, the layoffs kind of hurt me a lot when it comes to like the fans remembering. But every time I get in there, it's always a good pop.
How hard has it been on you just to like have these constant layoffs where you can't, like, it's hard for you to kind of get that momentum like going and ride, like going up there?
Man, forget the momentum. It's hard on my pockets. That's what it's hard on. It's like, to be fair, I think I'm one of the few guys there. I'm very, very happy with how the UFC treats me and like my contracts and stuff like that. My only problem is staying active, so I can collect these damn checks.
And the one thing about money, which was pretty crazy, is McDessie posted that thing about Australia, and you kind of chimed in. I didn't realize how.
Yeah, man. Australia freaking sucks. I made my debut there too, so that was my one and only bonus that I've ever gotten so far. So when they handed me that check, it was devastating. I was like, man, at least give me a chance to break the law. They take it before you leave the country.
I guess you're out on Australia fights then again.
Yeah, nah. I told my manager, nah, that was the one and only time. You only get one chance to make that mistake.
Yeah, because I've talked to like a lot of fighters. Some fighters want to go out there for the travel, then they do it once, and they're like, "Yeah, no."
Yeah, until they get that check. Yeah, that's what everybody says. Until they get that check.
Yeah. With this one, like, what is kind of the goal? You get your hand raised. Like, what do you like? I imagine it's probably next year at this point. Like, you're hoping like 2 or 3 fights.
Yeah. Shoot, in a perfect world, I get my hand raised with minimum injury, but I'm pretty sure my legs are gonna be sore after that fight. But if it does go that way with minimal injury, I would like to jump in right away. Like I said, I'm at the point of my career right now, man. I want to start cashing these checks in, man.
With the leg kicks, like that's just something you got to be like ready for. Like he's obviously very known for him. Like,
hey, that's fighting, man. I said it before. The Nigerian mentality I have: a fight is just a struggle, and you just have to be able to endure. And with somebody like Edson, you better be ready to endure.
Just 2 more things, like featherweight division. Like, what do you think is kind of next? Do you think it's Ilya gets that shot, or like how do you think that kind of like top 5 gets booked?
Yeah. Most likely it's going to be Topuria, but I honestly think it's going to be a relatively easy fight for Volk. So after that, then it's kind of up in the air. I think they might have Volk going back to what's the name again? Going back to lightweight.
Yeah.
And then there's probably gonna make an interim title. It's just you have Volk there, and they have a giant Titan right in front of them. That's killing everything else. It's like a video game. The boss right in front of them is not any easier. So as long as Max is there, it's probably gonna be Max and somebody else for an interim shot.
I was actually talking about this to my friend the other day. I actually think Volk, this might be one of his last fights at featherweight, and I think maybe he just because he's kind of beaten everyone. There's not a whole lot there left.
But I don't think he would just relinquish the belt. Volk isn't like the biggest guy, it's not like he's having weight problems or anything like that. I think he's going to be one of those things where he's just going to be bouncing back and forth. And to be honest, I don't see him being Islam.
And just final thing is also your YouTube channel. The predictions are one of the funniest things going. How did you kind of think of that? Like, what kind of the reception been?
Yeah, to be honest, is that's like a troll that I've always done like my whole career. When you're a fighter, most people only have one thing to talk to you about, and that's fights. And I really don't like talking about fights. To be honest, me and my real friends, we talk about almost everything outside of fighting. So whenever somebody new or somebody shows up, they're like, "Hey, what do you think about blah blah blah?" So that I always just start trolling, you know. I just start saying things that sound like they make sense, but to be honest, they don't make sense. So it's like an inside joke between me and my friends. It's kind of like the same. I know nothing about like basketball or football, but I could hold a conversation and acting like I know what I'm talking about, unless if you really know what the sport is, you know. So that kind of just translates to that. So one day I was like, you know, let me just make an Instagram video of me doing that, and it got a good pop, you know. So I was like, oh, nice, let me start putting it on YouTube, you know, and it started growing. So man, the YouTube grind is like, it's kind of hard, you know. Like it grows. It was growing a lot slower than I expected it to, but I got a big pop once from Izzy giving me a shout out, and slowly but surely it's starting to grow. I think I'm almost at 10K, but I told him I'll be back. I had to put it on rest for a while until camp is over. And I know everybody wants me to do one for my own fight, but I was advised. I was like, yeah, you probably shouldn't play with that, whether it's jokes or not. You know, you don't want to find yourself in a FBI investigation.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. But like, I feel like after your fight, if you'll probably get a big boost to the YouTube as well, just once people kind of see you back in there.
For sure. I think honestly around fight week they'll probably start getting there. But to be honest, the last YouTube video I made I think was probably my best one, and it was a good way to end it, like a good cliffhanger to end on.
The Michael Bisping still,
yeah,
the best thing going you got.
The double business.
Well, Sodiq, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
No problem, man. Have a nice one.
Yeah. All right, we're jumping UFC bandweight Adrian Yanez, who's back in action on October 14th. Adrian, how's it going, man?
Man, going great. Living life, man.
Just first thing is, obviously, the Mexican Independence Day card is like 2 days from now, 3 days from now when we're doing this. Like, were you a bit surprised you didn't maybe get on that card just because you obviously have that Mexican-American heritage?
Yeah, I was pretty surprised, but at the same time, like, I think it just timeline-wise, it just wasn't working with the bookings and all that stuff. Even though we were trying to get fights booked for a while now, it just, stuff just wasn't lining up. And, it sucks because I really wanted to be on that card, just to represent my mom's side of the family. They all came from Mexico, everybody like immigrated from Mexico to Houston, so to me, it was like one of those that I wanted to represent for my mom's side of the family. I always represent my dad's side of the family. U.S. Marine, so I'm always representing that for my dad's side. But I wanted to do this for my mom. Want to do this for my Mexican heritage and all that stuff. So to me, I really wanted to get on that card. But things don't plan out the way you want them to, and I'm here. I'm here. You got a great, phenomenal fight in front of me. So, it is what it is.
Just quickly on your last fight, like, what do you take away from that? Like, obviously didn't last a whole lot in there. Like, got a experienced fight at like a top 10 guy in the world on Rob. Like, what do you kind of take away from that fight?
There's a lot of things I was able to get away with fighting guys who just weren't at that level yet. So I was able to get away with a lot of things. I would get careless a lot of times, and it kind of backfired on me this last time. I messed up, deviated away from the game plan because I had him hurt within that first minute, and I was like, oh, I'm going kill mode. And then my mind got away from me. I started trying to land the bigger shots, and then he started building his momentum up. And when he started popping shots on me, I was like I got into the whole mode, like meathead. I turned into a whole meathead, and I started trying to land big shots on him. And he was building his momentum back up. Like, he did it like that. He turned the tides that quickly and was able to get his rhythm going. He started doing the stuff that his team planned for, and was able to do it very effectively. And that was on me because I messed up. I deviated away from what I was supposed to do. I was trying to stay on the outside, pick him apart, and then every single time he came in, counter him, and I did a very good job of that for the first minute. But again, it was only a minute, and then it was 2 minutes of me just going downhill. So I just got to be better at that, better at like knowing who I have in front of me. I got careless, kind of going back to the Tony Kelly fight. I got a little bit reckless, but it worked. I was able to get away with it with a guy who's not at the top 15 level, at the highest levels of the guys, so I was able to get away with it with them. I can't get away with it with the guys who are the top 15. So changing my mentality, changing the way I do things, still being a killer, but doing it better and more technical and tactical.
And then about 6 months off, like I know you never like got put out cold, so like did you really have to take a whole lot of time off for that? Like, but was this about the right time frame? Just kind of let everything heal, like brain everything wise.
Yeah, no, it was I pretty much I got cleared like very early on, like did the whole talk to the neurologist and all that stuff, and everything was good. It was just like one of those I got caught by a punch that I didn't see coming, pretty much on the tip, like right on the button, like right at the tip of the chin. So it was like one of those. I was fair, like it was weird because I just, I got hit, saw him, and then all of a sudden the extra shots landed. Got up immediately and was just like, fuck. Like I knew I fucked up, I felt the ref push him off of me and all that stuff. And yeah, it was like one of those, I didn't feel uh like going to the back like, oh, what happened, I knew immediately what exactly happened, so it wasn't as bad. Like it looked bad, but it wasn't as bad. Everything was fairly working correctly and all that stuff, like had full function, able to do everything I needed to do from a you know what
Yeah.
from a head standpoint. There we go. I couldn't say that word before or even after the fight. So
Yeah. And then with this one, like Jonathan Martinez, like been in the UFC for a while. Like you guys have fought some similar guys. Like how familiar were you with him then when you got the call?
Man, so when I got the call, it was weird because we hung out with each other International Fight Week, and I was like, it was a weird thing because I was like, man, I really like this guy. He's a cool guy. He had the same opinion about me, and then we both are managed by my same manager. And remember, Jason called me and was like, hey, what about Jonathan Martinez? Like, well, if that's the name, it is what it is. I really like the guy, and he was like, what's funny is like he said the same thing about you, man. You're like really cool, like really cool guy. I was like, yeah, man, sucks it has to be him, but it's the business, so it is what it is. I think I actually have it on one of my YouTube videos where, like, I think me and him ate a brownie. We're eating brownies together. So it's a weird thing, because we were cool. It just became cool fight week. So he's a really cool guy, man. It sucks it has to be against a guy I like. I'd rather be somebody I don't like, but at the same time, we're both in it to be the best, and eventually we're going to be fighting each other anyways.
And Jonathan's on like a very nice winning streak, like ever since he got knocked out by Dave Grant, like I think like 2 years ago now, something like that. So like, what have you kind of made of his last couple fights? He's been beating some really tough guys. Like even Satan Nurmagomedov we beat last time, was a tough out for kind of anyone.
Oh yeah, man. His run has been amazing. So being able to get an opportunity to stop that, and me get on my back on my own win streak is like something that I'm really looking forward to doing. He's a tough opponent. He's a guy that's going to be in the top 10. He's going to be in the top 10 after this fight. After this fight and his next fight. So, but yeah, no, it's a very good fight for me. Just because like, I'm at the end of the top 15. I would have thought he would have been fighting some guy that's closer to the top 10, like in that area, especially coming off of a big win. Like, I'm not even going to try to say his last name, said. So being able to fight a guy like that and beating him, I would have thought he would have got somebody hard, but the fact that I'm getting him off of a win, I was expecting to get somebody like either 15 or like just somebody who's just outside of 15. So for me, getting a fight against the guy who's on the run, for me, it's exciting because yeah, I get to go in there and showcase that I do belong with these guys up top. So I'm really excited for this matchup, man. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be really fun. Two guys like each other is gonna be end up all war anyways.
Is there a lot of pressure on you going to this one, like just coming off that first UFC loss? Like I know you've ever, like it's not like it's your first loss, like you've lost before, but like in your career, like you never lost 2 in a row, and then like kind of you just finally got into those rankings, and obviously you lose. Like, is there pressure on you going to this one?
No, no. Actually, there was a lot more pressure on me fighting Font. If I would say there's a lot more pressure on me fighting Font, just because of the severity of the fight. There was just like so much at stake. I knew if I were to go out there and knock him out, like that would have been like if I were to start him the way I was thinking I was going to do it, that would have shot me in the top 5. That would have put me up there with those guys and been in talks of title contention after that. So, so yeah, I knew the severity of that fight. This fight to me is like it's again, like not trying to say it's not important, but it's still important in a sense of like I'm trying to stay in the top 15. I'm trying to stay in the mix with all these guys. You know, I'm trying to make sure I'm like I get a win over Jonathan, you know, put me up, you know, bump me up to like maybe close to the top 10 guys, and then start working my way down and start working my way to number one on the on the rankings so I can get my title shot. So I know how important this is. But I said there was a lot more pressure on me for that Font fight. This one a lot more relaxed, you know, more relaxed in the sense of like, all right, the pressure, I guess, you know, I guess that would be the pressure's not as much, you know. I went out there, fought before, you know, I took this loss against Font, but now I'm back against another tough guy. I get to redeem myself. So that's the way I've been looking at it. I get to redeem my loss in a sense of, you know, I still belong up there with those guys. So just redeeming it and just kind of proving it to myself, you know, that I belong with these guys.
And then who are kind of the main guys you've been working with? Like, I know you have to spend a lot of time in Texas. I know you kind of go different places to work. So like, where are kind of the main, or who are kind of the main people you're working with?
Oh, Houston. I've been sticking in Houston for a lot of this camp. You know, so I got my training partners like Rafion Stotts and Matt Schnell, and then I got like these other guys who are up and comers, you know, I get to work with all the time, and I have great coaches on top of that. My striking coach, Michael Chase Corley, has been getting me ready for this. Heavy kicker, and he got a lot of kickers in his gym, you know. So for me, working with him has been phenomenal. Then Eve Edwards, who's just a southpaw, so who's a southpaw legend in the game. So I get a guy, so I get to get tips from a guy who's only wanted to land left kicks, and like his whole game was southpaw attacks. And then again, Rafion Stotts, you know, southpaw. He's a pretty hard kicker, so, but also with great wrestling, great grappling, you know. So for me, it's been on the up and up. I get great goes every single time I step in the cage, you know. So I step in the cage in the training sessions, those training rooms, man, they be hard. They get real hard. And then my conditioning side, my coach Phil, you know, been helping me out a lot. So yeah, no, I got a great group of guys back here in Houston.
How do you think you and Jonathan match up against each other? Because I think there's a lot of fans, they saw this fight and they're kind of expecting it to play it on the feet for either 15 minutes or till someone kind of gets caught.
Yeah, I feel like that's how I look at it. You know, I don't think he's gonna shoot, but I don't think he's gonna shoot, but I'm preparing for it. I know he's gonna look to keep me at the kicking range. He's gonna try to throw everything left side heavy. I saw him kind of in a couple fights where he switched to orthodox, but I feel like he's way better in the southpaw position. He's way more dangerous in the southpaw position. He goes orthodox. I feel like there's like, you know, this skill gap churns. You know, he goes from a guy who's really elite in the southpaw position, but he searches to the orthodox. He's like, he's good, but he's not elite like how he is in the southpaw position. So for me, you know, just making sure that, like, you know, I make sure that I keep everything. I make him guess where we're going, where the fight's going. You know, one thing that I've kind of strayed away from is, you know, keeping my distance and making sure that, you know, I get too much of a meathead. So I'm trying to make sure that I stay nice and tight because that guy's fucking dangerous, and I have to make sure I be on my P's and Q's. So he has to worry about the same thing as well too. You know, we're both powerful. We both have finishing abilities. So yeah, it's either gonna go all three or someone's getting slept.
With Jonathan too, like just kind of building off that, like, do you like he's a very durable dude, like other than Davey Grant, like knows able to put him out. He's fought some tough guys, like some guys with some powers. Like, is there like pressure on you to like get a finish here, or is it just like kind of you're fine if it goes in? Because like throughout your career, like you've kind of been known as this guy to knock these guys out.
Yeah, no, I don't feel any pressure fighting for a finish. No, like every single time I fought, the finishes just came. You know, if I just fight the way that I need to fight, the finish will appear. You know, so for me, it's just making sure I stay within my game plan and don't turn into a meathead and try to force stuff. You know, the minute I try to force some things, that'll end up not being good for me. So I got to make sure that I stay on my game plan. Got to make sure like I'm doing what I need to do to get the win. If you know, if I get a finish, then, you know, that's phenomenal. It's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking to shut his lights out. you know, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't, man. I'm cool with getting the win. I'm cool with getting a decision win. I'm not going to try to force anything anymore. You know, I used to force the finishes. You know, that kind of a good example is that Tony Kelly fight. I kind of forced for that. Like I was pushing for it. Like after I got like him a little bit hurt, I was forcing it. And you know, going into that Fawn fight, like I hurt him. I tried to force it, but you know, kind of if you start searching for a knockout, you end up getting knocked out. So you know, I went against my own my own thing that I told my fighters. You know, it's like, hey, you start looking for it, you know, it's gonna happen to you. So you got to make sure you stay technical the whole entire time. And you know, sometimes you gotta look yourself in the mirror and be like, hey, you know, you say it to all these guys, so hey, you know, take your own advice. So for me, you know, it's just making sure that I stay within my game plan, making sure that I do what I need to do, and you know, the finish is gonna come.
What do you think a win over Jonathan, especially if you finish him, does feel like? You obviously guys are ranked like 13, 14, so, but like it is a pretty solid name. So like, what do you think a win here does for you?
Man, a fantastic win like should give me a guy in the in the top 10. You know, like even if it is 8, 9, 10, 11, you know, I feel like fighting forward is where I need to be fighting at, you know, after especially after a win. There's no reason for me to look back. You know, like like after the like again, like just kind of going back after this fight, you know, fighting somebody just outside the rankings, you know, that was something that like you know, give a guy who's just outside the rankings, you know, a chance to get into the rankings. You know, for me, fighting a guy who's just in front of me, if I beat that guy, you know, and I do it in convincing fashion, there's no reason that I should be fighting someone behind me. I should be fighting forward. So that's the plan. You know, fight, get the finish. You know, fight. If the finish comes, it comes. You know, I should be fighting forward.
I actually think like Pedro Munoz makes a lot of sense for the winner of whoever wins to you guys, just because like he is kind of right now, like especially after losing Cheeto, like he is sort of that gatekeeper for the top 10, like has that veteran name where like maybe you guys are a main event or something like that. But I feel like it has to be like someone in that kind of like 10 to 8 area.
Oh yeah, no, I 100%. I think that would be a phenomenal fight itself too. You know, Pedro Munoz is just one of those guys who's been also another one of those guys who's been in the game for a long time. So it'd be an honor to share the cage with him too. So any one of those guys, man. Again, I'm no pick. I don't like. I don't want to pick and choose who I fight. I just want to make sure I fight somebody. You know. So for me, you know, again, like I was throwing in my name. Throwing in my names for those short notice fights, you know, I was the guy that was game, you know, and I still am, you know, whoever pops up, it pops up. That's that I have to fight. I have to fight.
Just a couple more things since last time we talked. Like bantamweight division changed a whole lot with O'Malley becoming the champ. Like, did that surprise you? Like, what you kind of make of that fight?
I wouldn't say it surprised me. I was you know, I again like Aljo, the homie, you know, he's a good guy. You know, he's a phenomenal fighter, one of the greatest bantamweights of all time. You know, there's a lot of like definitely he's up there with Dominic Cruz just because of his run on his way to the title, and then you know, unfortunate events with the title run. You know, sometimes not always the best, but yeah, no. The title changing hands over to Sean, you know, it kind of gives a lot of movement to the division. And honestly, at the same time, you know, we kind of know what Sean's about. He wants to you know, fight for the most amount of money. So usually it's never going to be those guys who are how can I say it, like who are deserving. Might not fight Marab, probably will fight Cheeto next, you know. So just because that fight probably gets more money, you know. So I wasn't really surprised. I noticed whenever in that first round, I thought the first round, you know, was good for Aljo. I just expected him to shoot in a little bit more, close the distance a little bit better, you know. So going into that second round, I remember just thinking in my head like how aggressive Aljo is getting and kind of just lunging in at some stuff. Like I immediately knew, I was like, no, man, this is not like it's not looking good. It's not looking good because he's lunging at stuff. And I was like, if you lunge at O'Malley, that guy can put your lights out, you know. Wasn't surprised with the knockout. I was just more surprised with like I guess how careless Aljo had got in trying to close the distance, you know. So for me, you know, I knew if Aljo was gonna win, it was either gonna be TKO or submission, or it was gonna be O'Malley knockout, you know. So for me, I wasn't really surprised. It was just kind of just like, damn, like fuck, Aljo, damn. You know, that's the way I kind of looked at it.
Just kind of like a two-part question. Like, who do you think is next, and like, who do you think like, and then maybe it's the same answer, maybe it's different, but like, who do you think deserves that title shot next?
So who I think is next is probably going to be Cheeto. like just because of the history, the background, like they're both going back and forth, and that right there is just like for the UFC and for dollars wise, that makes the most that makes the most sense. O'Malley's more about the money. He wants to make sure he gets paid, and that fight right there, 100% should bring a lot of pay-per-view buys. Who I believe should be next, it should either be, I probably had to say Marab, and number two would already be Corey. Those two are the guys who should be next in line. But again, it's probably going to go to Cheeto.
Just two more things. Like, is it not kind of a good thing though for you that O'Malley is the champ? Like, that's the guy that's called you out in the past. Like, he doesn't really call out many guys. Like, he kind of lets, like, when he zones in on a guy, like that's kind of guy he wants to fight. So he's wanted to fight you in the past. Like, you get a win over Jonathan, maybe you get one more, and maybe he's a champ. Like, maybe you guys he revisits that, because it seems like you can call his shots kind of right now.
Yeah, it's like, look, if I here's the weird thing is that for me, I always wanted to work my way up to the title shot. Like I've always told everybody around me, I want to be on the Max Holloway run. Max Holloway fucking went out there, worked his ass off to get to the title. That's what I wanted to do. That's exactly what I wanted to do, because I was like, man, like, when he got there, he was ready, but also I have a family now. I have a family now. I'm trying to make sure I set them up for life, for the rest of their lives and all that stuff. So, as much as I would want to work my way up there, man, if there's a shortcut to get there, then you're telling me that after this fight with Jonathan, let's just say hypothetical reasons, I go out there, I knock out Jonathan Martinez. Next thing you know, like Cheeto isn't able to fight. A small little name throw, be like, hey, Sean, what's up? And next thing you know, me and him might be fighting. It's weird things. Weird things have happened. You had Sean, who I think was like 11 or 12, somewhere in the rankings, and he fought the number one guy, and that put him in shot next to fight for the title. So yeah, man, stuff like that can happen for me. These type of opportunities, especially with Sean being champion, can happen. So I'm not ruling it out. It would. Like I want to be a guy who has integrity and work my way up there, but at the same time, having integrity for my family, I would want to change their lives and make sure they're set up for the rest of their lives. So for damn sure, I would take that.
Just final thing, like you get past Jonathan here, like kind of pushing it to get one more in this year. So like, when is kind of that ideal time frame for you? Like everything goes your way.
Yeah, man. I was again. I wish I was fighting on the 16th because I wanted to push for a December fight, but I know that they're already looking to book, and I think they're booked up already for like the next couple months. So it's going to be hard to try to get back in there immediately. So for me, I want to try to get back in there as soon as possible. So December is definitely one of those dates. January, February would be great for me as well too. But the sooner the better. If it was up to me and I could just just wave a magical wand and be like, fight December, I would do that. But just got to work everything in the timeline. Again, if it was up to me, I would have already fought already. But yeah, hopefully December, January, February timeline. I want to get back there quickly.
Well, Adrian, I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this again.
No, thank you, man. Thank you for the platform.
All right, we're jumping UFC strawweight Ashley Yoder, who's back in action in October. Ashley, how's it going?
It's going. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, obviously been a while for you. Like I know you had some surgeries. I know you're filming like a pretty cool show from what I've heard from your management. Like what kind of had the past 2 years been like for you?
Yeah, definitely. One of those things I can't speak of. But I had surgery. Actually had 2 surgeries. It ended up being a lot worse, and the first surgery was kind of a botch. So and then healing and kind of just making sure I was 100% before I decided to pick back up again. It was a long way off, but I definitely think it being such a long layoff, I was able to, when I came back to training, I was able to kind of just like train and learn new things instead of being focused, right out of a fight to a next fight. So
I know you can't talk about the TV show. Everything I've heard though is it gets a pretty epic and cool thing is what I got told from your manager. That's all they would tell me. It's
yeah,
pretty cool reality show. That look, when is that going to come out then?
It will be in November, but yeah, it was, man, using fighting stuff. It was a crazy experience for sure.
And then while you were off, especially after the first surgery like failed, did you ever think like that was it for your career and you wouldn't fight again?
Not at all. I think they just misdiagnosed what was going on, and the first surgeon wasn't the best surgeon. So no, not at all. I didn't have that thought, but you do have that thought of like, all right, is it worth it having this much time off? You don't get that paycheck. It was a rough 2 years, but I'm definitely excited that we're back on the high side of it. Getting back and ready for a fight. So definitely excited.
And then when were you kind of fully ready to take a fight? Like, was this about the right time, like the time frame you expected?
I was ready probably any time during summer, but waiting, just making sure it was the right call for whatever the USC wanted for me is kind of where we were. So I'm okay with it. Just give me more time to make sure I was 100% and just feeling good about myself. So
And your opponent, Emily Ducote, like how familiar were you with her?
I have a lot of friends that have fought her, so I have a lot of just watching them fight. So I've had the experience of watching her. Great fighter, very experienced. Yeah, I think it's a great fight for me too. I think it's going to be a fun fight for the fans as well.
And then for this one too, like it's been obviously a while since you fought. Like, do you worry about ring rust or anything like that, or like is that a concern for you?
No, we have like basically simulation fights at our gym. We have the lighting the size of an octagon, so we kind of go through everything and just getting comfortable. So no, I mean, I definitely believe there's people that have faith and believe that that's real, but if you come in prepared, my very first fight I didn't look like I had ring rust, right? And I never been in an octagon. So yeah, yeah, I think it's a mental thing, really.
I was looking at your record too before this. Like, it's pretty crazy that like 75, like 80% of your career has like been in the UFC. Like, majority of your fights been in the UFC. Like, what's that been like for you to kind of like grow up in the sport at the highest level?
Well, it's kind of crazy because I feel like I'm still learning so much. Like I always tell everybody, I was like 6 fights into the UFC and I was on the mats right before sparring, Googling how to spar. I had 6 fights in the UFC. Like, one of the biggest things that I'm so grateful for is that I have that opportunity, win, lose, or draw. Like I show up to fight and I love fighting and I'm always wanting to learn. So, just being at the highest level and be able to hold my own for as long as I have there, it means so much to me, but I want to prove more to myself, if that makes sense.
Uh, was there ever like a concern of like after the time off, like the UFC might have just like cut you or anything, like after being off for 2 years, or like did they always say that you'd have a fight when you were ready?
No, I got a new contract right before my surgery. So yeah.
What's that like then for you to get another contract with the UFC?
Well, I've had more than most people realize, but it was good because I was on my last fight in my contract, and my last fight wasn't my best showing. Obviously, I was injured, and it was that was a scary moment of like possibly losing your job, right? Because I feel like for them, not re-signing was an easy way out. So yeah, I'm just grateful for the experience to be there, and I want to show that I'm meant to still be there. So.
And all your fights are like pretty exciting too. Like, do you think that plays a big role where like the UFC knows what you're gonna bring and it won't really be a boring fight when you're in there?
I mean, I hope that's the reason I still, they like I love fighting and I think it shows in my fights. I'm not scared to be anywhere in a fight. I'm not scared to be on the ground. I'm not scared to strike and bang, I really try to just like be a fan favorite because I know that that's what fighting's about, right? Not only about winning, but you also want to push the limits and make an exciting fight, and I think that's one thing that I can bring to any fight.
Who are kind of the main people you're working with for this camp?
I've been going down to San Diego a lot and training with like Angela Hill and the girls there, Jenna Bishop. They have a lot of high level girls that aren't even in the UFC or Bellator, but there are a lot of girls in those divisions that are, just helping me out. And then I've been to Colorado at Elevation with JJ Aldridge and her team out there. So yeah, I've been getting out of my comfort zone and getting some high level training everywhere. And I'm very grateful for all these girls to help me out.
What's that like to train with Angela? Because you two obviously fought twice in the UFC. Like Angela has fought Emily as well. It's like how beneficial has that been?
Yeah, it's been great. I think, I mean, I've trained with Alima, there's a bunch of Kanako. I've trained with Kanako. She's fought Emily. So there's a few people that we've trained the same and fought um the same people. But Angela was kind of funny because we have been talking about it for a while. And I think the first time we actually were sparring, we're like, oh my gosh, we're having like PTSD of our first and second fight. She's like, I'm having flashbacks. It's like, me too. No, so it's been good. And she's a really awesome person, a really great training partner. So she pushes me, and she's just a cool person all around.
And Emily is one of the shorter like girls of this division. Like you are gonna have a big height and reach advantage. Like how important do you think that will be in the fight for you?
I feel like most of the people I fight, I look like a monster compared to. So, it's just getting different body types and getting different feels for a shorter fighter. But at the end of the day, it's like it's pretty much they're all a lot shorter than me usually when I get in the octagon. So I look like a monster for real. And I know I'm not that big, but like I look big.
Do you like is the cut to 15 hard for you then, or is it like a relatively easy one?
No, it's always easy. I've always walked around under 130. So it's not bad.
Which is really like, because when I talk to some girls that are like straw weights, like it's a lot heavier than that. Usually their walk around weight.
Yeah, I have a friend that would cut from like, I won't put them on blast, but like high 40s to get to 115. So, yeah, I don't have the hardest cut, but, no cut's fun. But yeah, I think I'm in my right weight class. So.
Obviously, you're a very good striker. Like, do you expect Emily to like come out and wrestle you and like want to take this fight down to the mat then?
I'm pretty much expecting any and everything. I don't like going into a fight thinking that they're going to do one thing. I have to for whatever they're going to bring in. She's very well rounded, so yeah, I'm just being prepared for any aspect of it.
How do you kind of see it playing out then?
It's really going to be all over the place. I think it won't just be a stand-up fight. I don't think it will just be a ground fight. I think it'll be a true MMA fight with a lot of scramble exchanges and things like that, landing some punches and kicks. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of just get back in there, really.
Is there any pressure on you at all, like just coming off the layoff, like the 2 losses going to this one, or like is there any added pressure for this one?
I mean, she has 2 losses too, so
Yeah.
I think in the UFC, you're always fighting for your job, right? Like you have to show up. So extra pressure, no, but there is always going to be pressure. And I do well under pressure, so it's fine.
You get your hand raised. Like, what are those kind of emotions like for you? Like, just kind of everything you've been through the past 2 years, like failed surgery, like being off for that long to get back in the column. Like, have you thought of it, like what that would be like for you?
I'm just really excited to get out there and compete and put on a show on for the fans. Of course, a win is the ultimate goal, but the focus is on the process right now and getting through each fight week of this camp and just really focusing in on being the best version of myself. So yeah, I'm just focused, man.
Just 2 more things. Like, what do you think a win over Emily does for you? Like, you're someone that's fought a lot of those girls in the top 10, top 15. You've had some success against them. So, like, you're kind of always right near there. So, like, what do you think a win here does for you?
Yeah, I think it puts me in the right direction to get closer to a ranked opponent. And, really just I have had a lot of fights in the UFC, and I feel like if you watch my fights, you see that, I'm competitive. It's not just like I'm losing fights and the UFC's keeping me around. I'm losing close decisions and sometimes the wrong decision in some people's eyes. So I think it just gives me some praise on I'm in there going in the right direction and, looking for that next whoever they decide to give me after that. But all my focus right now is just this fight. So.
Just final thing, like fighting middle of October, it'd be hard to make a quick turnaround. It's like, what is kind of the goal then for you next year? For you, this is it for you.
Yeah, no, I'm just, at this time, like I said, just focusing on what's in front of me. I can't, voice anything past that. For me, it's, everything goes into what's standing in front of me. Because if this doesn't go or something falls out, anything can happen, then you should be focused on what's in front of you.
Well, Ashley, I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this again.
Thank you.